Hey folks, when I made my last video, the last part I asked a question, and the question wasn't about whether there is or isn't free will, or the mechanism for free will, or the mechanism for consciousness. It was a pretty simple question. Although some of the comments I got went into all these very, very interesting areas that I really enjoyed discussing in the comment sections. But the question was, why is it that folks trained in the sciences tend to believe that human beings are conscious but do not have free will, and folks that are not trained in the sciences tend to believe that human beings are conscious but have free will? Why is that? Is it something to do with differences between the concept of consciousness and free will? Or is it something cultural, societal, institutional, that differentiate between those trained in the sciences and between those folks that are not? That's the question. Now, lots of folks started talking about free will, if there is free will or not, and that's kind of interesting stuff. But what I'm really curious is why is there the difference in belief systems? And so I'm kind of not going to give you my answer, which I didn't have last time I made the video. I came up with that question. I thought, I don't know. Let me make the video and ask people. And I did, of course, and I got some interesting responses, but almost none of them having to do with the question. And a lot of them having to do with determinism and quantum mechanics and the nature of consciousness and being, and I had a great, great time, as I said, discussing this, and I'm still discussing it in the comments. But anyway, let me just kind of frame this a little bit more, and I'd be interested in your responses in this. Science does not have a clue as to how consciousness could be possible. Now, we haven't had a clue about other things before. We didn't have a clue about the UV catastrophe, and whatever that is, we solved it when quantum mechanics came along, and we couldn't figure out why Newton's laws were starting to break down, but relativity came along and fixed that. But the thing is, we never thought those were as big a gaping hole of not knowing as consciousness. Let me put it this way. The fact that we appear to be conscious, but we have no notion of how this could be possible. We have no physical laws that can explain this, makes consciousness appear to be a supernatural phenomena. That's right. Perhaps consciousness is a gift from God, or perhaps God is consciousness. And perhaps the same is true for free will. Because we have absolutely no mechanism to explain how we could be conscious or we can have free will. Now let me explain this. It doesn't matter whether the universe is deterministic or probabilistic. That's kind of like dice, but not like physical dice that you roll. Those are really deterministic and they appear to be probabilistic. You end up with probabilities, but they're really not. It appears that the universe fundamentally is probabilistic, that things happen for no reason, no cause. That's quantum mechanics, and for the last 100 years, it's generally accepted that that is more fundamental. The way it works is, if you take those probabilistic issues, in limiting cases, things appear deterministic in the same way that Newtonian mechanics appears to be correct in limiting cases. Newtonian mechanics, you know that guy Newton and stuff, and he figured out about, planets and all that kind of stuff, how they go around the sun. He got it mainly right, but Mercury was wrong, and then Einstein figured out the rest of that. The idea is that Newtonian mechanics is not fundamental. It's a rough idea of how things work, and then relativity kind of takes that, and that's a little bit better. And we're finding out that all this apparent determinism is underneath the hood of the car is probabilistic. Now, what does this have to do with what I'm talking about? Absolutely nothing, but I've got into conversations with people about all these issues, and they're terribly fun. But here's the thing. Whether it's deterministic, probabilistic, any combination in between, scientists have no mechanism. They're not even close. Even if there was a book that says, consciousness explained, it's not. We just have no clue as to how it's possible to be conscious, or how it's possible, if we are free, to have free will, even to a small degree. So it's supernatural. Perhaps consciousness and free will are gifts of God. In fact, if I was going to argue that there was a God, I would argue that God is consciousness. Now, that's really not my argument. It's my friend Steve's, who's deceased, but we used to argue about that all the time. I haven't heard from him since, though, but I'm still waiting. But the thing is that his argument was that, and I've taken it a lot further. I've actually argued both sides because it's fun. I'm weird. Anyway, so I'm telling you all this so that you'll come up with some great, brilliant answer. And then I'll make one more video about all this stuff. So let me just kind of get to the question here. There's no known mechanism for consciousness. We're not even close. It's just a mystery. Same thing is true for free will. Why is it then that folks that are trained in the sciences tend to believe, the majority, that we're conscious but have no free will, and folks that are not trained in the sciences believe we're conscious but have free will? Look forward to your answers. Thanks.